And this is where this Trojan horse is here. This industrial, and nobody's really picked up on this yet. This new climate strategy. Get ready for it. And we've been talking about, because Tim Hodgson has been kind of laying the groundwork for this. They've been laying out the groundwork. You know, that American company that's come to Canada, carbon capture, that they touted, which has that carbon capture thing. They're going to get, I think it's like 60+% investment tax credits, and then the ability to tax our energy industry. So the industrial emissions cap, which we said they were going to scrap, and there you go, they're talking about scrapping the emissions cap. And then the industrial price becomes the core of the plan. So they've not taken away industrial thing, because Carney talked about, we'll talk about it later here, how other countries are wanting to have a carbon border pricing a scheme. I don't know who wants it. Like, because again, Trump signed deals with Japan, Germany, and South Korea.
And the European Union signed a really bad deal. So did the British.
Yeah.
Both big on this kind of thing. They begged the Americans for a deal. But apparently they'll only do business with people that have these policies in place.
And not even in the carbon pricing, no other major world producer of oil has taxed their oil like Canada, and yet we continue on it. So here's 1.3, Canada's climate competitive strategy. So the climate action is not just a moral obligation, it's an economic necessity. And like, again, we just said, the Americans signing deals left and right. They don't seem to see the economic necessity. Though obviously we're seeing it from a different set of glasses. The world economy undergoing historic transformation towards low carbon energy and clean technology. How did the Americans sign all those deals? It's weird, no?
It's almost like they're selling people things that they want, and they don't care about how they were produced. I mean, what is the rise of China over the last 30 years, if not that? People will choose the bottom line over anything else. Doesn't matter if you make your solar panels with slave labor. People will still buy them if they're cheaper than the ones produced elsewhere. But apparently, Mark Carney sees the world differently. Again, I mean, he is super smart after all.
I mean, I don't think anybody else is talking about this, but I believe that this is the Trojan horse in here, and it's carbon capture. The best scheme is to do one that takes a while to lay the groundwork and then just have all the pieces come together. And here, if we look at this, it's a couple years back, some of these headlines. Brookfield invests billions in carbon capture and decarbonization. Brookfield closes $20 billion close sets record for a global clean. Carbon capture and storage. Brookfield raises $20 billion for a record transition fund. So all these things, as Brookfield has invested, go to Brookfield's website. Look at what they do, carbon capture. And this is what's going to get introduced here in Canada. Tim Hodgson has touted an American company. The tax credits for these people coming in for carbon capture is 60%. And then plus, I think there's some provincial incentives as well. I think it was up to, we did the story, it was up to like 70% or 67% for just investment tax credits for carbon capture. And then the ability to sell these credits. And here's a little graph here, like of how this works. Industrial, so we got these companies that make CO2 emissions. Then you have this carbon capture. You can make up your own little diagram there. But the one that came to Canada was like a bunch of fans, HVACs. Basically, they suck the air through, wind. They suck the wind through, and then sequester the carbon, and then they put it in a tank, like this tank they're putting it into, and then they truck it. They don't show the trucking here. They truck it, and then they bury it into the ground and then sell those credits to these carbon-emitting companies or energy oil field companies, or even anybody that's making stuff. Because this is all died in the States. And that company that came to Canada, you can go back and watch our issue on it, or you go to my LinkedIn, you'll find it. The company that came to Canada said they had to leave the United States because Trump killed the big green bill or whatever, and all the credits are gone. And they said it's too expensive to do this technology anywhere else in the world, and there's no viable option to like make money with it other than Canada. Perfect.
The Canadian taxpayer.
So the Canadian taxpayer,
that's the fruit to be picked.
The Canadian taxpayer is going to fund all these American companies that can no longer be viable in the United States selling carbon capture credits, because the world wants a carbon pricing thing. But the Americans somehow have got around it when they signed their deals. Amazing, no? How did they do it? Perhaps somebody should pick up the phone and ask them, how are you selling this
But
stuff?
how are the Chinese doing it? There's another question for you. How are the Vietnamese doing it? Vietnam, much talked about country for its economic importance right now. You know, these countries don't care about this kind of thing. India is another example. People are kind of like falling over themselves to try and do business with India.
It's
Does
just
India do this kind of thing?
you're going
Obviously
to
not.
you're going to hear carbon capture, carbon capture, and they're going to release the emission. They've said it in the budget. They're going to remove the emissions cap, and Alberta's supposed to be happy about that, right? Hey, here you go. The emissions cap has been removed, which is great. But guess what? If you're going to produce energy, it's like the EV thing. Like you either buy an EV or you pay a penalty. So you can produce oil, but you pay the tax. And it's cool that these private companies are going to have the ability to tax our energy, isn't it? Brookfield. And it's just amazing how Brookfield is just ready for this, right? Just absolutely prepared. Like you go back and read those headlines. You can go back, scroll back, how they're invested big. And that investment would fall on its face if it was relying on America right now, because there is no carbon capture schemes going in Canada. Karma capture, someone says. Yeah, it's carbon
capture. That's good. But this idea that, I mean, the fundamental premise, to use Mark Carney, remember when Mark Carney used to use that word all the time? Premise. He moved on to catalyze, didn't he? But the fundamental premise of this whole system is that you create a market, a carbon market, and that, you know, companies will go to this market and try and buy credits. It's just such a strange thing to do. Anybody that studied either economics, psychology, history, politics, anything, any of those subjects, you will know that to create an artificial market out of thin air, literally selling air as well, is you know, a very risky endeavor, to put it to put it lightly, and not really in the grand scheme likely to work, is it? And we've seen in the past where governments have tried to fabricate markets out of thin air. We've seen this happen in the 20th century, particularly, and lo and behold, it didn't work.
Do you know what does work better than injecting this carbon into the ground and not knowing what's down there, and you're selling these credits? Who owns what credits? And like you're selling people stuff they don't want, and you're charging them a lot for it. You put it in the ground. But you know what does a better job of all this? There's little trees right there that they've grayed out because they don't like trees anymore. Trees should be green. So the trees do all this naturally. Anything, actually, grass does it. So anything with photosynthesis actually processes carbon and releases oxygen. But apparently you can't trust, on the Carbon Capture USA, the website, it says trees can't be trusted anymore. That's why they need to do carbon capture, because trees light on fire.
Okay. Well, we've heard as well that climate change, because of climate change, trees don't even absorb carbon anymore the way they used to, like they did in the good old days.
Photosynthesis no longer works, apparently, I guess.
No, it's all done.
But Mark Carney's out there. He's going to pitch this budget because they haven't voted on it yet. So now he's out there pitching. Here he is this morning out there. You got the hard hats in behind him.
Where's his hard hat?
Around the industrial carbon pricing, there was some language in there that admittedly I'm a bit confused about. I'm hoping, considering this is kind of in your tool, your sandbox, you can help me out here. There's some vague reference to how we're going to consult with the provinces and territories about strengthening the industrial carbon price, specifically around when the federal backstop goes in place. Yep. We've seen those changes around a consumer carbon price, getting it down to the price of zero, effectively killing it. Are we going to see something similar? What assurances can you give to? What assurances can you give to Canadians, to members of your own caucus, that these changes, that these consultations with the provinces and territories won't lead to an immense weakening of the industrial carbon price?
The assurance is in the budget, where we talk about strengthening the industrial carbon price and strengthening the backstop. And there's various ways to do that. And as you probably know, is that different provinces have different carbon pricing approaches, different carbon markets in some cases. In some cases, those markets, for example, are very liberal, if I can use the term, in their credits that are provided, and so the effective carbon price, there's a big gap between the effective carbon price and the backstop price. There's ways to work on that, and we believe in cooperative federalism, so we don't just say by fiat this is what you're going to do. We work with the provinces in order to, as I say, to tighten the system.
Can I just get clarity on one other thing? I think during the campaign, maybe during the leadership campaign, there was talk about a carbon border adjustment mechanism. I didn't see that in the budget. Maybe I missed it. Is this still something that you're pursuing?
Look, the issues around carbon CBAM. First thing, the carbon border adjustment mechanism. Pardon me. The fact that we have an industrial carbon price will provide us market access for countries or jurisdictions, the European Union being the obvious one, that put in place a carbon border adjustment mechanism. So it is important. There's lots of reasons why it's important to have an industrial carbon price, but one of the reasons why it's important is for market access. And if we are diversifying, as we need to do, if we've taken one lesson from the experience of this year, it's that we need to diversify our markets abroad. It's an important component. There's a question whether we put in place a carbon border adjustment mechanism. It's something we're looking at, but it wasn't a budget initiative to do that. Thank you.
That's good. That's good. There you go. But again, the Americans don't have any carbon adjustment prices yet. They're doing all the deals. I don't know how they're doing it. Maybe they're lying.
But also the idea, is he absolutely certain of this, that the European Union and South Korea and Japan and all these countries won't do business with us unless we have something like this in place? Is he really sure of that? And can he show us the evidence? Because I'm not sure I can see it anywhere. I know the Europeans have talked about this, but the Europeans are full of you-know-what, They do all kinds of stupid things, the Europeans. They say loads of things and then do completely different things. Like the Germans now, buying God knows how much LNG from the Americans. They were even buying stuff from the Russians through the Indians, two countries that don't bother with this bollocks. I mean, for God's sake, you're betting on the European Union. You're betting on the European Union being honest when they talk about things like this in the first place. Evidence suggests otherwise. But you're also betting on the European Union being some kind of fountain of growth. It's a stagnant bloc. It hasn't really seen serious growth in a very long time. And then East Asia, obviously those countries in East Asia would rather survive. That's what they would rather do. So when it comes to trying to contain China, they'll work with anybody that helps them do that. I just don't think this is grounded in reality. That's my fundamental objection. I like my leaders to be in reality with me, and I don't get the feeling that that's where Mark Carney is. But I just want to give credit, just a quick shout out to somebody that said that Gregor Robertson looks like Giga Chad, which I don't know if you're familiar with that meme, but it's like a meme with this man who has like a giant chin. And he's like, I don't know, people, if you know it, you know it. And yes, he does look like Giga Chad. It's very, very funny.
Well, the world has moved on from climate hysteria. Even Bill Gates has come out and said that the world needs to move on from climate hysteria. And he was like one of the grand poobahs or the pope of climate fear. And he's moved on. Yet Canada, and again, if we pull back up those, we don't need to pull it back up, but you pull back all those Brookfield, you can go on yourself, look up Brookfield, just put the words together, Brookfield and carbon capture, and you're going to see the amount of investment that Brookfield has made in carbon capture. Then go look at Tim Hodgson's touting of this company that's come to Canada, Carbon Capture USA, and how many more of them will be welcomed into Canada here in the next little while, because there's no business case for them in the United States, like Trudeau would say, no business case for them there because they don't get any tax credits. Come to Canada, take our tax dollars, and then we'll also give them the ability to tax our energy companies. Isn't that amazing? And again, does Saudi Arabia tax its energy with carbon pricing? Does it? The United States sure doesn't. So how are we competitive if we're going to add, like this supposedly carbon border pricing mechanism into place, carbon capture? Again, maybe we should just ask the Americans how they do deals. for energy without this carbon pricing border mechanism, CBM or whatever he's calling it.
Or any other country, like in East Asia, particularly, which all the attention is being directed to, East Asia and the Europeans. I mean, come on. You just have to just go on like Bloomberg or something like that, or Reuters, go on one of the main sort of news agencies and just read about the sort of things that are happening in international trade, and then look at the countries involved and see if they have this kind of system in place. If they don't, what is Mark Carney talking about? This is not abstract academic like wonkery or something that only 5 people understand. This is really basic stuff. Anybody can test this theory.
So one truth that CBC and the other mainstream medias have not picked up yet is that this budget is very similar to Trudeau budgets. It's the big pillar is climate. The big pillar is still climate, industrial carbon tax, whatever you want to call it, climate. And the world's moved on. Bill Gates has moved on. And yet here it is, Canada.
Even he's changed his tune.
Canada and Brookfield don't want to move on. Why? Why don't they want to move on? Because Brookfield has invested billions of dollars in this, and they need a way to get this money back. Remember what Carney said at the UN too. Listen to that speech again. We need to move this investment into carbon capture from weak hands to strong hands. The strong hands being government. And there's only one government right now that's willing to pay for this stuff, and that's Canada.
And this is coming from Mark Carney, who's described himself as a pragmatist, and Francois-Philippe Champagne, who's also described himself as a pragmatist. And even last night, when he was trying to promote in the media thing after the budget, he's trying to promote the budget, he was asked, why did you get rid of the tax on boats or whatever it was, luxury boats, something like that?
Talk about
He just said because it was inefficient, it cost more money to administer than it raised in revenue, and I'm a pragmatist, so I got rid of it. How is this pragmatic? How does this align? How is it possible that they can say one thing and then with their next breath completely contradict it? I can't see how this is efficient. I can't see how this is pragmatic. None of it makes sense.
From an investment perspective, they've invested billions of dollars. Brookfield and a lot of the people, don't forget Mark Carney led this climate stuff. Him and Bill Gates would be sitting at the front of the room together. They led this. And the only place they're going to make money on this right now is Canada, because the United States has killed all of it. There is no credits left there. So where's all these carbon capture people going to show up to? They're going to be here to milk Canada for it. They're going to take a bit
in the process,
off
they might bring global emissions down by something like 0.05% or something like that. You know, that's where my question about pragmatism comes into it, because
you're missing the
at the end of the day, that's what this is all supposed to be about. It's all supposed to be about getting those emissions down. That's supposed to be like basically their only aim, and they want to achieve that by, any means. Well, how is that pragmatic if that's the result?
I think it's more about return on investment. And again, go back and read those Brookfield investment things. Carbon capture mentioned 18 times in the budget, 18 times. Carbon, I think it was 98 times in the budget, 98 times. So there you go.
Did you do Control F pipeline? That was one of the first that I did.
And how many?
You'll find it if you do that. Do your Control F pipeline, and you'll find that it's a metaphor. There are five examples, and most of them are metaphors where they say, we're going to curate a pipeline of international businesses. So not a real pipeline. A metaphorical pipeline.
That's what was missing in here, and I was going to say that. That's the other part of the ugly. No mention of a pipeline to our coastline. That's what makes Canada weak right now. I mean, that's only common sense tells you. No other customers for our oil other than the Americans, really. I mean, there's some dribs and drabs that go out of the TMX, but other than that, it's America. And here we are protecting ourselves against America, and we've done nothing to do it. It's what I mean. It's all just, but again, if you look at carbon capture, you're going to see that a lot. So the green activists unhappy with Carney's budget, though, despite the strengthened carbon tax. The green would rather you just, I don't know what they'd rather you do. But I mean, I don't even know how they really have a say. They have one person, one seat.
Well, they also have a lot of influence in the Liberal Party and obviously the NDP as well. And they have a strange sort of relationship of convenience with the Quebec nationalists, where it's more about trying to get Quebec out of Canada rather than some deluded idea that they're going to save the planet.